Okay, one thing I'd like to say is when I'm creating a lot of my imagery, I often will create it in a new document that is larger than my actual animation document. So when you say File, New, I made one that's 4 times the size of our regular animation. So I just took the number of pixels, said times 4. And I'll do that for backgrounds that I'll need to zoom out on, or need to pan through, or characters that I feel like I might want to zoom in on later. Hey guys, I'm going to show you a few ways to actually design your characters in case you're having problems with that. Now of course you can move some characters using Puppet Warp, but what I actually recommend to make this as easy as possible when you're actually animating and to keep the quality of your images is to separate your character into overlapping shapes. Okay, so you can use an actual photo or you could create the character from different shapes. What this is going to look like is sort of like a paper puppet. And here's an example of a paper puppet. You'll see that basically, if you could think of this in terms of Photoshop, right? Anything that you want to move would have to be a separate object on a separate layer, right? So that it's made of overlapping paper pieces. So you would have overlapping imagery that you kind of pretend there's a hinge in, so you could rotate it from that hinge. If you had to actually switch perspectives, you would need to actually create the body parts at different perspectives. So this paper puppet can move her whole legs, left to right, they could rotate, her arms from the shoulders, and her head where it connects to her body. And it looks like her bag could kind of move on its own. So as you can see from like how the paper puppets looked, if you're creating this character from these overlapping shapes, they can only really move, kind of like rotate, right, from the perspective that you see. So, my hand could rotate like this. If I need to switch perspectives, I need to actually get a different picture or make a new version of the character. I hope that makes sense. So like in this case, I'm actually, instead of creating from scratch, I'm going to just show you, if you're using photographs, how you can kind of make overlapping shapes from a photograph to sort of make that work for your character, right? But if I needed to see this cat from the front view, I'd have to get a different image. And I'm just going to show you on this guy how to separate him into overlapping shapes, just because he's got all these tricky patterns and stuff. So it's making it a little trickier on me in case you have a tricky image. But I think for the rest of the demo, I got a black cat, so he doesn't have quite as much value to work with as this silver tabby. And I'm using copywritten images, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I cite these in my YouTube video. Try to use your own images, or if you have to use other images, even if they're not copywritten, just at least put the source in there for me, where you got your images. You guys have a little more leeway than any professionals who are making money off their work would. But again, for this animation, just remember the majority of the imagery has to be made by you. So I'm going to do a few demos how to separate this cat or any photographic image into overlapping shapes that you could then move like a character, and then how to create an image from scratch using different layers. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and use my quick selection tool, and I want to think about where I need this cat in this perspective to move different body parts. So I'm thinking his legs have to move, his tail, probably his head needs to be able to bob, maybe I even want his ears to wiggle. So or maybe for our purposes, maybe his ears won't wiggle, maybe they'll just stay put and the head will move. So I'm just going to try to select the head sort of separately and say refine edge, and I'll try to get these little whiskers. I got an image where he is kind of over a blank background, so oop, that didn't work so well. Undo that. Hopefully this thing can kind of figure this edge out. Maybe I can do this. Let's undo that. Let's just say smart radius a little bit. There, it kind of made that a little fuzzy. Right, so I'm not concerned about the whole body right now. I'm going to save one layer that's just the head. And, I might add a little bit more into this on my own in a second, so I'm just going to say selection for now. So it just altered my selection, and I'll quick mask it. And when you quick mask, you use your brush just like on a regular mask. We get a more regular sort of brush. Match the hardness with about how hard you want the edge to be, so I'll just say maybe 90 here. And I'm going to paint with white, which will add to my selection, so I'm just going to kind of give him a little bit more on this head layer than I think I need, because it's going to overlap some of the body. Okay, maybe up through this neck. Okay, when you're happy, what I suggest doing is I'm going to go back to my Refine Edge dialog box. So go into Selection, Refine Edge, and in Output just say New Layer. Okay, so it's not going to mess with my original layer. My silver tabby is still there. And now I have a copy that's just the head. And I'll just name that Head. Okay, I could do this same process for the jaws and everything. Maybe I would in the long run. I'm just going to do the main body parts for the demo though. Right, so then I would go back to my silver tabby body. Again, select, and maybe I'll do the body this time. So it'll overlap a little bit with the head. And again, I can kind of take out part of this. So that's looking okay so far, but let's just quick select. I'll get my regular brush, and this time I'll paint black. So I can just switch these here, or I can press X. See, does the same thing. And so in the body, I don't really want the tail. So I'm just quickly kind of painting that out. And I want to pretend this leg isn't there. So where is the body when the leg's not there? It's kind of like that. And I might end up kind of feathering this at the end anyway. And I'm pretending the leg's not there, but the body's under it right here. And it's not under this leg. Okay, don't need the head in this layer, I just want the body. And I'm just going to kind of round it. Kind of like that. Nope, get the foot out. Okay. Again, choose a selection tool, Refine Edge, and I'm just going to use my brush to clean up a few of these little edges, if it lets me. Make that brush even smaller, because I don't want it to take out too much. That looks fairly good. Okay, and so then I can say New Layer again, and OK. And we'll name this Body. Now, I don't want it to look like there's an arm here, right? So what I might do is just use either Healing or Clone Stamp and make it a little bit soft. And maybe I'll zoom in. And you can see the watermark here, but that's because it's a copyrighted image that I'm using. So I'm going to kind of copy some of the patterning I see to get rid of this shadow here. So maybe I'll go here. And it might even be better in this case because the I don't know, the patterning is so similar in color. It might be good to kind of use the Healing brush tool instead of the Clone Stamp. So let me try that again. Option click, and it's going to blend a little bit more. See? So I'm just trying to kind of get rid of a little bit of that appearance of the arm. And I'm going to make it a little less hard. Let's see. There. Right, so anywhere we have sort of shadows from some part of the body sticking out, I might try to do that, make it a little more general. And so it still looks the same, except minus the rest of the appendages, as the tabby does in this image below. what I'm going to do is just pause this video and make the rest of the appendages, and then I'll show you how to move it. Okay, so you can see that I have the parts of this cat on all these different labels. Here's the full cat. You'll see a few areas where there's gaps that I need to fill in, and I haven't really completed, like, these are not totally overlapping yet. Like this leg right now just ends right there. If I were to take the body off, you'll see, right, it just ends. So I need it to go further up in here, this leg too, and that will take care of those gaps. You'll see the front legs are really easy. If I take off the, I'll just show, see the front legs already overlapping. Same thing with this one, no problem. So the tail and the two back legs, I need to kind of create something that's not already there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's see, let's go on the tail, and I guess I'll take the visibility off the stuff around it. So we want this to look like a natural tail, so when we move it, you don't see these weird gaps here. So as much as I can, I might use the clones stamp, and I'm just going to try to use parts of this image to kind of extend the image. And I might have to do it a few times. And I might even go over it with the healing stamp too. Let me see, or the healing tool, sorry. It's hard to talk and do this all at once sometimes. You guys try it. Try to tell someone what you're doing while you're doing it. It's a little bit hard. So it's looking a little better. It's not perfect. And then up here I need to go into the body a little bit more. So I'm actually just kind of defining the source a lot and just kind of extending that edge a little bit. And we can make this a little harder now. Maybe not that hard because that looks weird. Might have to blend it afterwards. Okay, and I can use various tools like an eraser, or I could use the healing brush to kind of go over some of the weird effects that I created. Like up here I can definitely see that pattern is repeated. So this kind of blends at the end, right? So that's not what we want. I don't know why that's turning that one white. Alright, that doesn't look too bad. So there's our tail, and now it overlaps nicely with the body, or underlaps, I guess we should say. Let's do our far back leg, and we just want to bring it up into where the body's at. So I'm going to go ahead and again use the clone stamp, and I'm just going to clone this part I see right here. And I can take it farther than I'll really need it. That looks pretty good. Let's make sure that it underlaps the body enough so it looks kind of realistic. I don't know if I did enough or not. We'll see when we start moving the character, I guess. Okay, so we got the close leg, the tail. Okay, we have a little gap because of the back leg here. So let's choose the far front leg, and I'll get rid of the close leg and the body. Let's see. And I just want to make this go a little further. So again, I'll use the clone stamp. And I'm just kind of extending what I see. And I might have to do this a lot further. I'm just kind of doing it not too much because I just want to do it for a quick demo, but might not be as quick of a demo as I hoped. Okay. So, let's see, I'll zoom in a little bit. The idea is that we have this cat in all these overlapping shapes, right? If you're happy with it, you want to make them all into smart objects. So, select, say, layer, smart object, convert to smart object, layer, smart object, convert to smart object. So it's going to remember it at this quality. Layer, smart object, convert to smart object, layer, smart object, convert to smart object. Here we go. Same thing, you get it. And all those parts are smart objects. I can then select them all, and maybe I'll even select the invisible image that I started with, and I can put them into my animation. Let me see. So my animation document, remember, is only 800 pixels by 600 pixels. Okay. So make that active, and I will just use my move tool. I can either drag straight from my layers palette, or you can just drag from here. So you'll see this is the option of how big I can make this guy, and they're all smart objects still. What I would then do is group them. So just say Command G. Now I can size them all at once, and I just have to open my folder to start animating them. So if I were to start making an animation right now, very simply, right, I could shrink the entire group, but it will remember it at its initial size. And maybe I will have the tabby start to walk in. So I'll start there, and let's pretend there's no background for some reason. This is just a quick demonstration. So remember, to create a frame, you're basically stamping what's visible. So you want the top visible layer active. I'll see if it works with the whole group active. And say Command, Option, Shift. So all your sort of special shortcut keys, Command, Option, Shift, and E, like everything. And if you're on a PC, it's Control, Option, Shift. Option and Alt are the same key also. So anyway, I'll just call this frame 1. Unlike my first video, I've discovered we can reverse frames, so I don't really have to keep changing the order of the frames after I make them. But I'll take off the visibility. Okay, now I'll select the group of the whole tabby. I will move him a little first altogether. So maybe I'll move him there. Okay, then I'm going to start changing the position. Okay, so to actually have moved that way, I think that the far back leg, or sorry, this far front leg, let's see, I think I'm going to have to rotate it. So I'll say Command T. notice you have this little center area. So where am I rotating from? Maybe like right in here is where I think the shoulder area is. So I can move that first. And maybe I'm just going to rotate it. Okay? And I can later move the whole cat up if I think I need to. And maybe I will also tilt the head so far. Let's see. Head. Command T. Again, where is it rotating from? Move that little center transformation area. If I were to scale it, it would scale from there too. So maybe I'll just tilt his head down a little. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and make a... Alright, maybe I will rotate this too a little bit. So that shoulder's kind of up in here. I'm not going to see too much happen with it yet. And I'm not worried about this back stuff because we can't see it yet. Okay? So I'll go ahead and maybe move the whole thing up just a little, too. And let's see. So it goes there to there. Okay? So now I'm going to take the visibility off frame 1. Whole group is active again. Command Option Shift E, like everything. Call this frame 2. And again, this order is okay. So 1, 2. Okay, turn that off. Again, I'll move the whole tabby. And so maybe I'll move them up a little bit like this. It's kind of snapping because I think I have use snap on, so I don't want to move it up that much. Just a little bit. We'll see. Okay, in here, so this leg again, move where it's rotating from. And so I don't hopefully have any gaps coming in. If I do, I could always move the arm up a little and over. And I could press return. Okay, and then this front leg, move to the shoulder area. Actually, I guess that would be kind of tilting back if this other leg is sort of coming back to. I'm trying to figure out what this would be doing. Okay, I think it, alright, here we go. I think it might be doing this. I didn't make it so I could move the foot separate, so it might look a little bit strange, but bear with me. And I just kind of nudged it around. And I think I made the cat's head going down a little, so I'll just continue that just a little bit. So it does it for a few frames. Okay, so then it looks like this, and like this. Okay, and again, Command Option Shift E, like everything. So this is frame 3. Turn it off. Move the whole cat. And you know, the foot might look a little weird because I didn't make it so I could shift the toes, but hopefully you're kind of getting the idea. I would also be moving the back legs and the tail. So I'll go ahead and try to create a quick animation just with the parts I've made where this cat moves across the screen. And you know, maybe we even zoom out on him at the end or something. Okay. Okay guys, so I made 19 frames, you're going to see, by doing that stamp visible technique. So they're all actually in my layers. And so this is using the photographic cat where I just separated pieces. So some parts are going to look a little clunky because his feet don't quite move correctly. Sometimes I had to shift body parts because of where they were overlapping. And you'll see in here I started also zooming out And there's no background, so right now it's just zooming out on the whole cat. So since he's grouped, it's really easy. Right after I move him, like if I turn him on, let's move him back for a second. Right after I actually moved him, all I do is Command T or Edit Free Transform, Control T if you're on a PC, right? And I can just hold Shift, and I also held Option so it's scaled from the center. And then just press Return. So everything scales together. So I scale, I do any transformations, any moving of the entire character first, and then I open the group and I go into each one and rotate parts. And you can do that with made pieces as well. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I just wanted to remind you then, in the timeline, I just need to make sure this says Create Frame Animation. Click on it. And then in my options on my palette, these little top right options, I'm going to say Make Frames from Layers. And I'm going to delete the ones that are all kind of like starting imagery before my actual frames start. So I'm going to have this first one selected and hold Shift and click to 9 and just say Delete. From frames, they're still in my layers. And I actually have this going backwards right now. If we play it, you'll see it's going backwards. So that's not what I want. I'm going to go in my options again and say Reverse Frames. And now it's going the direction I want, but I need to select all of these and slow it down a little. So I'll try 0.2 seconds. I could also type in my own time if I am not happy with something like this. And I'll just go ahead and I like looping them. And you'll see it's kind of zooming out. You guys can see how that's looking. So this is without a background, but just the cat moving. And these are just selections from a photograph. So kind of, you know, a little clunky, but kind of fun too. And then the last step, of course, if this was my final animation, which it's not, I don't have a background, I don't even have a story, right? This is just practice, but let me put it on a frame where I see more of the cat while I do this. Okay, File, Save for Web, because then I can preview the colors a little better. Right, so the more colors you have, the more realistic it will look, but the larger file it will be. Like right now, this is 939K. So what I like to do is I like to try to make it fewer colors, and if it still looks okay, I'll go with it. If you have gradients in your work, it will be really obvious once you take your gradients out. You know, or I mean, once you lower these colors, it'll be really obvious that you're losing quality. With this fur pattern, it's not that obvious. So I might just leave it maybe at 32. I'm not seeing obvious color or detail loss. I think probably now I'm losing a little bit of contrast, and I can start to see something in the fur going on. So I'll leave it back at 32, but look, instead of 900K, it's almost half that. So I'll save this, and I'll just put it on my desktop for now, and we'll see if it worked. Okay, go to Desktop, Animation Practice, and I'll just drag it into a browser. And look, it's working. Hooray! Now if I were to, let's just hold on, let me go back to my history back there.